Many times, if you're working at a really large organization where you have lots and lots of different stakeholders and you interact with them maybe only once per quarter or once per year, you'll want to use these best practices. One, you'll want to set up some sort of inbound request process so that way everything is standardized. That way you're not kind of running around having to reinvent the wheel every single time someone throws a request out. You don't want people to send you an email versus call you up on the phone versus walk by your desk and give you a request. You want to make sure that it's all standardized so that way you have a scalable process to work with all these different stakeholders. And kind of once you receive some inbound request, you'll want to set up some time with the requester to discuss their needs live. Because again, maybe there are ways in which we can, we want to make sure that we're understanding what is it that they're trying to get done with their ask. And we want to see, can others benefit from this need? Or are there ways in which we can reduce kind of the heaviness, kind of the size of this ask, where we can still reap a lot of the value without having to commit all of these resources to it? By sitting down with them, we can better understand what their objectives are, help them see kind of where their ask currently ranks in terms of, would we be doing this right now or not? And help them determine what's going to be kind of the long pulls out the ask. How do we kind of minimize these long pulls? How do we make it more palatable, more bite-sized for us to then go actually invest into? But many times you'll also be working with stakeholders over very, very long periods of time. And so to work with these kind of higher priority long-term stakeholders, we want to make sure that we're setting up recurring one-on-ones so that way we are understanding what are the kinds of pains that they're running into. We want to keep a pulse on what does our working relationship look like, kind of how do we continue to evolve it, how do we continue to improve it, then also to check in on progress. Right? Another thing that's also really helpful is to preview the roadmap with these kind of longer term stakeholders every month-ish, because that way you have their support before going into some larger meeting. Kind of you want to make sure that you don't take any stakeholder by surprise. And so for these longer term stakeholders, it is really important for us to have that kind of buy-in and to make sure that we hash out any disagreements or any sort of misalignments, misconceptions before we get into a large room with, let's say, the CEO or with any sort of executive groups. We want to make sure that we're kind of aligned at the baseline before going into these much larger meetings. And kind of across these different stakeholders, it helps not just to have these one-on-ones to understand their pains and to build that relationship, but actually to conduct user research sessions. Because again, your long-term stakeholders are actually your customers. And so we want to make sure that we are deeply interviewing them to empathize with them, to understand what are the kinds of needs that they have, kind of what are the different challenges that they're juggling. And so then that way you can kind of look across, hear all the different stakeholders that I have. Hey, actually, these different kinds of asks, these can all be generalized into this one particular set. So if we can find an opportunity to scale, to generalize the ask, that way kind of we're not rebuilding from scratch every single time with every single stakeholder. We're actually building things that are robust, reusable, scalable, etc.